Hello, love wrestling. It's Thursday night. It's 8 p.m. And you know what that means. It's another new episode of Between Two Beards.
Can we start off with the biggest news of the week? The Rats lost! If you've got the budget, I've got the time.
There he is.
Hey, boss!
There's the boss.
Hey!
The man with the finest beard on this screen.
Canadian men, boys, shut the hell up. Let me talk.
You see, the Rads are resourceful. When I got beef with somebody, I can find a way to talk to them.
Hello, love wrestling. It is Thursday night, and it is 8 p.m., and y'all know what that means for the 171st time. Plug.
What does that mean? What does it mean? Oh, shoot!
Sierra? Sierra, it's been a while. How you doing? Did you accidentally put us on Twitch?
I think I accidentally put us on Twitch. So, hi, everybody on Twitch. We usually don't run live on Twitch, but here we are.
Sorry, we're on YouTube,
we're on YouTube,
Twitter, and Twitch now? Just for tonight?
I set the link really quick during dinner today.
Apparently.
Because
we have Sierra. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Hope you're well.
Yeah. Because we were doing some moving and some shaking today.
Well, at least now you know we're on the YouTube side of things. So come say hi to us on Thursdays on YouTube most of the time, Sierra. We've been missing you. But yes, it is another episode of Between Two Beards, and we got a big one tonight, Pluggo.
Yeah,
we'll be talking a little bit later. We'll be talking some all-out fallout. See what I did there? We'll be talking some NFL Week 1. We got some Raw and WWE things to talk about. But, first and foremost, we'll say our hellos. We'll pay the bills a little bit with a couple reads and things like that. But a certain list came out on Tuesday, Pluggo. A certain list that you and I usually take some time the week it comes out every year. Yeah. To discuss it. We have ourselves a special guest this evening who helps make the list. He's involved with the list.
He's the keeper of the list.
He's the keeper of the list. We have
You don't put nothing on. You don't put nothing on this list without Kevin's stamp of approval.
Correct.
You just don't. You can't do it.
Yes.
We're so excited.
We have Kevin
fired up
joining us. We're going to fire him up on here in just a
Dustin,
minute.
Hello, Dustin.
And it's going to be a fun time diving into this list. I looked it over. A lot of LPW people, good amount of LPW people, the people that have wrestled for LPW on this list, which is nice to see. But I want to dive in, kind of pick his brain a little bit. But before that, Pluggo, first and foremost, how you doing this week, bud?
I'm good. Hanging in there, living life.
Yeah.
Just licking my wounds from Notre Dame's loss on Saturday.
We don't have to get into it.
I'm still not over it. We hung out with the Mark Order podcast last night. That was a lot of fun. Go check that out. We talked a lot of all out and Dynamite. So go check that out with Asian Joe and Ryan, I guess.
Ryan was there for a little bit. He was
there for a little bit. He popped in and made a cameo. But enough about me.
I was gonna say, you? I'm doing well. I'm excited about tonight. Should be a good one. I'm doing good. Can't complain. My New England Patriots undefeated last time I checked. So we back. We feeling good. We're in the zone. But before we bring our guest Kevin on, I do want to talk to you about our friends over at NordVPN. I'll show that in a little bit, but Lawrence is getting on you. But our buddies at NordVPN, it is the fastest, the safest VPN you can get on the interwebs, whether you're traveling for work, traveling for vacation or fun, or you just, you got to go somewhere. You want to stay safe. You don't want people to steal your Wi-Fi. You don't want people to steal your data. NordVPN allows you to have your settings like you're used to at home. You can take them with you on the road. It's super fast. It's super safe. And for us wrestling fans, pay-per-views aren't cheap. Pay-per-views aren't cheap. You can change your location at any time and maybe save yourself a few extra bucks on the $50 pay-per-view train. AEW's, been testing us out here these last couple of weeks. We got another one coming 3 weeks from now. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And a VPN, you can change your location at any point, and you can maybe save yourself some bucks on there too. So if you're looking to keep your internet, to keep your Wi-Fi, to keep your data safe, and just have the fastest and safest VPN you can get, go check out our friends at NordVPN. Those guys are incredible and the best at what they do. All right, Pluggo.
Do it.
Do the thing, bro. I'll pop them up. You want to introduce?
Oh, you want me to do it?
Yeah,
I thought you were doing it. Oh,
introduce.
Well, of course, the editor-in-chief of the PWI Top 500. It's PWI all the time. I don't think it's just the list. Kevin, I don't want to butcher McElvaney. Right? McElvaney. Yes. I don't want to butcher it. That's not the greatest intro in the world, but you're here. How are you, friend?
Good. You got my last name right. We're off to a good start.
All right. I botch a lot of things. I botch my own name at times. How is your first and foremost? This is the craziest time of year for you. How's your sleep schedule like?
It's a little bit erratic. I've been trying to at certain time of night cut off looking at anything related to the magazine. Specifically this issue of it, even though proud as I am of it, it can be a lot.
I bet. And as I can only imagine, I do want to pick your brain and get into it, but I can only imagine, like, when you guys are formulating this list, that it has to be one of the funner times of the years for you guys, like on the working side of it, building this list, and then you release it, and I'm sure just getting pelted with people agreeing, a lot of people probably disagreeing, just all this stuff. I can imagine how chaotic this time can be for you until the list kind of calms down after it's been out for a little bit and people are like, oh, okay, but just in general for you, how did you get involved with PWI? Like, how long have you been there? How did you first get involved? And and then we'll kind of go into the process of like when you actually start sitting down, talking deep about, hey, we got to start doing this list and stuff like that. So how did you get involved with PWI? How long have you been representing and working for them?
Sure. So I have been editor-in-chief of PWI since March 2020, which is the only thing of significance that happened that month.
Yeah, nothing else major
happened.
Yeah,
it was an awkward time to begin.
I bet.
So I started training. I shouldn't even say Stu Sachs, my predecessor, was still there, but that's when I started training for the role. But I started with PWI altogether, about 18 years ago. So as a freelancer, my first published writing out of college was technically it was with the Wrestler / Inside Wrestling combo magazine. But soon after that, PWI, and contributed to varying degrees over the years, sometimes more, sometimes less. I was not with the magazine for probably about 2 years in the middle of all that. And then got involved more with it, did a lot for the magazine on the social media side, growing our Twitter presence, for better or worse. And that's, and somewhere along the way, I did start sitting in on the 500 meetings and being part of the committee. And then once I took over as editor-in-chief, the buck stops with me, for better or worse. So
yeah, fair.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Nobody gets anything past you.
Yeah,
Kevin.
no,
that's right.
No. So for me, obviously, so you've been with PWI for a long time. This role, a handful of years, or approaching a handful of years, but you've been with the magazine and just working for them for a long time. And you said that you were a contributor on the list. So how long, dating back, did you start becoming a contributor on the list before you kind of, like you said, were the last stop before this thing goes to press,
Gosh, the That's a good question. It was the year after The Miz was number one. I was not involved in that list, but the year after I was, because I remember that was still a big.
Oh,
never forget the Miz, baby.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I know we kind of say that jokingly a little bit, but this is a very heavy, and you guys put it in kayfabe, like the title matters. The top prize was at that time the WWE Championship, so he held it during most of the time period, so it makes sense. I just was since you took over in 2020. And as the editor in chief of this list, how have you seen this thing grow in just 4 years, 4 lists, so to speak, since you've taken it over? Maybe toot your own horn a little bit, something that you've implemented or tried to do to make this thing grow. Because I've been a fan and a reader of this list for years, and I've seen like the buzz every year seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And what maybe are you doing behind the scenes to attribute to that?
So, a few different things, I guess. First off is that there were some new faces that were brought in, Righteous Reg, Kristen Ashley, Candice Cordelia, Jason McVeigh. They're both newer contributors to the list. And we still have, the senior writers, Al Castle and Harry Burkett, Brian Solomon, who's been with the magazine for years and years and was head of WWE SmackDown magazine for, so he's great. They're all great. So just kind of getting a good team into place. I take a slightly different view of the list in a couple of ways. One is the 500 at this time is treated not so much like the top male wrestlers in the world, which is what it was technically when I took
for sure
the reins. But more or less, we'll say heavyweight or open weight. So if someone is competing for certain championships and against the broader pool of independent talent, regardless of gender, they can make the list. And to me that it was a little bit outdated that we were having major champions, women in most cases, like we're talking about just being left off the list because you have a different list that you're on, which is what became the women's 250 list. So that was, and we still, every year we discuss a little bit, like, how can we make this more representative of what the business looks like? How can we make sure we're representing the different regions? And that's been a challenge. Another thing that, speaking of that is with the international scene in particular and the independent scene. So the view under Stu Sachs and when Dan Murphy did a lot of work on the list, a lot of great work, they sort of took the attitude that, well, the people who are on WWE TV get first priority, and then, it kind of doesn't matter where they are on the card. So they are the biggest stars in the business by default because WWE has the biggest reach. So anybody else who's up near the top of the list, they're really exceptional and they should be credited for that. But it's more, again, the exception. Whereas in my case, I think, yes, certainly like WWE World Champion is going to get more consideration for holding that championship and having that level of visibility. But that doesn't mean that everybody else is chopped liver. It also doesn't mean that anybody who's in WWE and does anything at all automatically goes above all these other people who are working really hard and doing incredible work. It's kind of hard to explain, but I've tried to do like a subtle shift in how we think about where people rank in this again, part kayfabe, part performance-based PWI 500.
For sure. And I think, like you said, for a long time, for the majority of the time this list has been out, this was the male list, and then the females started getting their own, and that grew from 50 to 100 to 150, 250. We've seen that grown over the years. And we're seeing more non-males on this list every year. Like year after year, there's female and non-males that are part of this list. Did those conversations happen at all back in the day before you kind of took over? Like, were these conversations happening maybe long ago? We just never got to that point until it was time to get to that point, I guess, if you want to put it that way, for lack of better words?
Sure. A little bit, because I'm blanking on the year. I think it was 1995, maybe. Jackie Moore was the first woman to be on the list. There were a handful of women on the list over the years. I believe China was on the list when she was in New Japan, maybe.
Okay, cool.
But just in general, when women appeared on the list, and there wasn't a women's wrestling ranking at that point for PWI, it would be kind of based on what they did against men. I mean, for the most part. But I remember one specific exception, and it was there was a lot of debate about where to put her on the list, was Sarah Del Rey. And Sarah Del Rey did make the PWI 500, and for a number of years, she was the last woman to have made the list. And we kind of looked at it like, well, she was like doing great work in Chikara and Ring of Honor, and she was like a respectable rating on the 500, but nothing like really, really high. And then right near the top of the women's list. And I think Stu Sachs at the time thought, well, this is a little bit confusing. Let's just have the two separate lists. And he says that that women were never technically excluded, but I remember there was a conversation one year about having Kimberly be on the list because she was the Chikara Grand Champion. And it kind of came down to, well, no, she'll do very well on the women's list. So wrestling is more complicated than that. Gender is a whole lot more complicated than that. There are some wrestlers that don't fit neatly into any category. And, a prime example is Max the Impaler. Max the Impaler, for the last few years, the non-binary nightmare, has been ranking on both lists. And this year you see Max doing something really interesting, in that they are the unified NWA television champion. So they possess the men's and women's TV championships and defend the respective championship depending on the gender of their opponent, which is a really cool concept.
That is very cool.
And because of that, I mean, what, you just have to pick a list to put Max on? It just, I realize that in the grand scheme of things, yes, like there's a lot more inclusion in the industry, and even then the pool of non-binary or wrestlers that don't fit, neatly into one category or another, it's relatively small, but that doesn't mean that those people should be shut out.
Of course.
So that's a huge thing. And I think the other part of it is that you need to consider the overlap. And it feels strange to have someone like Amasha Slamovich, who was GCW champion last year. So like what? She's just not on this list?
Until she signed with it. Yeah, until she signed with Impact, most of her work is male dominated. GCW World. She was like 14th last year, and I was like, that's amazing.
I think
for
she's 15.
her. Yeah, something like that. So yeah, that's super cool. I'm so happy to see that that's inclusion and that's an involvement, especially for us here at like Love Wrestling, who have LPW. We don't have a women's defined championship division. So like Zoe Sager, who's on the list, she held the grand championship for a better part of this evaluation period, and most of her title defenses were against male opponents and female opponents. So it'd be crazy to just pigeonhole her and say, you're only on the 250 because of your gender. So that's super cool that you guys are doing that and integrating it and making it carry some weight, like with Masha last year. Like that's just huge at 15. Trisha Dora is always high up on that list. Yeah. Deanna Purrazzo was making that list for a long time.
And I'm glad you kind of clarified it of like, hey, like, when we sometimes see the females or the non-binary people on the PWI 500, it was kind of preference, because like I would see like Masha Slamovich, right? 15 last year. That's a very high number for, but then, someone who might not know the inner workings of that, if I'm like, well, if she's 15 on this list, how is she not number one on the PWI?
Which we asked Mr. Warren Hayes that last year.
She's the highest. Yeah. She's in the top 20 of a male-dominated list. How is she not automatically number one on the women's list then?
Now, I don't know what Warren said, and Warren is a very valuable contributor to the women's ranking every year. But I mean, I can say the way I view it, so it kind of trickles down, is you have these three rankings we do. We have the PWI 500, the women's 250, the tag team 100. Yeah. We have three giant, just bold-sized rankings in our magazine every month, which are also the top three rankings that are listed on our weekly ratings updates that we do on the website. So that's something a lot of people may not know. People who read the magazine know that we update it monthly. But people who go on our website and follow us on social media, we have the weekly rankings that we update. So the way I look at this, we have the heavyweight rankings, we have the women's rankings, and we have the tag team rankings. We're ranking people not based on gender. We're ranking people based on the division they compete in. The tag team list is not gender segregated at all. It's everybody ranks on that. It's one pool of tag team wrestlers. We look at that list a little bit differently. There's a little bit more basis on performance. We have a little more fun with that list, particularly when it comes to the annual one. And in some ways, I think that could serve as a blueprint for what we could do in the future with the other two lists. But, for the time being, that's how I look at it, is you have these three lists, and then the annual rankings are just giant expanded versions of that list.
Love it. We got a couple questions in the chat from our viewers here. So we have our buddy Lawrence. He says, how much scouting of international talent do you guys do? So obviously there's a room full of a bunch of you that are going through this list. Like, are there people in that room that really only watch North American wrestling? Are there people that really only watch Japanese? Like, how much scouting, or how much people watching certain things? Or is it just, hey, this is what we naturally watch, let's just kind of talk about it and iron this baby out,
It's a little bit of both, but some of us are more in tune with, just by virtue of, this is where our interests lie. And this is actually even more evident in the women's ranking. Like, we got to have somebody in here who really knows Joshi inside and out. We got to have somebody in here who is very closely following the independents. And we have the same thing here. I can speak personally. A lot of what I watch, just a lot of what I enjoy, is international, particularly Japanese wrestling. But we also have people that we are talking to from different parts of the world who follow wrestling closely where they live. Promoters will submit rankings. We take all this into consideration. But basically, it's having eyes and ears on the ground as many places as we can. And that's long been how the magazine does it. But I think certainly when we add somebody to a committee, that's something that we really consider. So Jason McVeigh is the newest for the 500. Jason lives over in Northern Ireland, and he is really in tune. He's just really knows more about TNA Impact Wrestling than anybody I know. But at the same time, very in tune with the UK and European scenes. So he's been really valuable in terms of that. And just, that's the sort of approach we take. So I don't know if that quite answered your question, but hopefully skirted around it.
No, I think
that makes sense, because I think that's always that's a big one. And then you kind of touched on, and then Dustin has a question, and I kind of want to add to it, where he says, how much does a wrestler's social media presence or other online impact, as well as performance outside of the ring, community work, media approach, etc., have on their rankings, if any? And then I also wanted to kind of couple that with for the independent wrestlers, and you see the discourse all the time where some independent wrestlers take no stock in this list and think it's a favoritism thing. Is it all just people that you guys as a committee see and find on these social medias? Is there a process to get yourself maybe looked at a little further?
So we do take submissions.
Okay.
We put up a form every year. We left it up a little longer this year. We actually had more than 500 submissions. And I can say the people who are on there submitting are by and large not the people who are assigned that have contracts. A few bigger independent wrestlers, but a lot of times it's really people on the way up, or people who've maybe been at it for a while but haven't gotten the recognition. And we take a close look at what's sent in. We ask people for match clips. We ask people for, kind of what achievements you had this year, how long you've been wrestling. We just try to get a better idea, because it's impossible to know everything and everyone. We're learning all the time. So that's a big part of it. I think social media and the communal side of it is very important, because one of the things that we look at is influence. So it's influence on the industry. And it might seem silly to say, well, social media influences influence, but it is. I mean, you see someone look at a Danhausen. Danhausen, and I mean, he's not on television so much right now, but at one time he certainly was. He was Ring of Honor and then AEW. And a lot of that was due to what he was doing on social media. His reputation preceded him. So when people have this buzz around them, it leads to more people attending shows. It leads to more people knowing who they are. It leads to greater pushes, more championships for those people. So we do look at all of that, and it's not just, who has the best Twitter game or whatever, but it is, that a lot of times that is how people get more of a fan base. And that is definitely something that we consider in the criteria, along with the championships and wins and losses and such.
Yeah.
Boss man, can I steal one more real quick?
Yeah. You do whatever you want.
While I'm in the zone and I'm thinking about it. So the evaluation period is July to August. I don't want to mess that up.
Other way around, August
to July. Okay, I knew I'd mess that up. Yeah. Now, because college football is happening, I talked about at the top. You know how they have a preseason ranking every year. They put it out whether they know who's winning or not. Do you guys wipe the slate clean and start completely fresh, or is some of those like a Roman Reigns or a Cody Rhodes or someone like that? You're like, we know they're probably going to be pretty high, so we're going to start slotting them now, or do you just completely like wipe the slate clean every year?
We start with a blank list. We have a spreadsheet full of names from various promotions. We do a little bit of pre-ranking before we, but again, this is close to the meeting and it's not official. This is like a couple of people will be working on, go in and let's get all of the most relevant names from this promotion, put them in the order you think they go in. We'll sign them out, and then we'll get in the virtual room and we will talk it through at that point. But someone basically, momentum counts. I mean, Roman Reigns is going to enter the period as Roman Reigns, and he's going to be at the star level he's at. However, what he does after that matters. Right. Roman Reigns is a very good example to bring up because Roman Reigns did not qualify this year.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, he was top 3 last year.
Yeah, and number one the year before.
Exactly, and now he's not even on the list. Obviously, he was there until WrestleMania, took some time off. We've seen him once or twice since, but for the majority, and even when he was the champion, he wasn't wrestling every event, he didn't even qualify,
We have a minimum match requirement. It's not that we're saying because he wasn't around, he's not as good as all these other people.
6 matches. Yeah, you got
to. So it's 10, or you can have 6 in 6 separate months.
Okay.
The idea that's a very low bar to hit. And
I promise I read this magazine.
No. It's okay. It's confusing. We have people, who've been doing this list for years. Like, wait, 6 in 6 months, right? This was implemented years ago, and I think it was 10 matches, and then I think we added the 6 in 6 months to allow for, I don't know, probably at the time TNA was taping kind of infrequently, or you'd have like a PWG or NWA when it was based mostly on the West Coast.
Yeah,
it would be infrequent, but it was still important. So okay, this is, if someone's at a monthly show, they should be there at least every other monthly show wrestling a match. So that is the bar to hit, is that it's half of the period, at least one match. Now it's a little bit more strict the last 2 years because we were looking at, we have this tag team list. How can we differentiate it from the 500 from the women's 250? And the way to do that was to say, why are we ranking tag guys that have maybe one singles match all year on the singles list? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah. So what we did was shift that to 10 singles matches or 6 singles matches in separate months, which again, it's not a high bar. You have a lot of people who are wrestling dozens of matches. You have some who wrestle more than 100 singles matches. It's just really, maybe not more than 100 singles. It might be 70 singles and 30 tags. But it's, you have people who far exceed that. And this was really put in place to have, years ago, there were a Brock Lesnar had, maybe 2 matches all year. Yeah. It's not really fair to put him on the top of the list because he was champion all year. And I know Roman Reigns is better, regarded. I think it's more controversial to leave him off because, Brock Lesnar was a little bit easier to hate and everybody loves Roman.
Fair.
Fair. But it's just, it's so again, it's kind of complicated. And I know Al Castle, who actually came up with the hard and fast rule the year we were trying to drill down on it, he kind of regretted it this year. He's like, how can we not have Roman Reigns on the list? He wrestled 5 singles matches all year.
Yeah.
So,
That's fair. It's fair. All right. We have another question from the chat before we dive into the top 10 of this list before you got to head on out of here. But Dustin asked, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, like you do take kayfabe into account and things like that. How do you determine the balance between storyline success and legitimate in-ring ability when you guys are going through your ranking?
It is much more the former than the latter.
Okay.
Now, if somebody is just really wooden and uninteresting and not doing, there are some people who've been, I won't name names, but there have been some wrestlers over the years who've been pushed and pushed and pushed, and it's apparent that they're not getting over and the push is not going to be continued. And like, maybe even like they'll be just, they might be winning like matches like, oh, this person's beating like 3 jobbers at once or whatever.
Yeah.
That we look at someone like that and they would get less consideration than someone who's having like competitive matches.
Fair.
And then the other part of that is with the in-ring skill, it's the exceptional criteria. So the people who are really, really good are like a Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson he's probably, as long as he's wrestling actively, he would probably never be lower than 40, we'll say, even if he's losing and losing and losing.
Yeah.
Just because he's Bryan Danielson. However, if it's just based on in-ring performance, arguably you're going to have like Bryan Danielson, Kazuchika Okada, whoever to your taste, in the top 5 every year. That's going to get real
be Will
boring.
Ospreay and
exactly.
It's going to be those guys. Yeah.
So Ospreay is a perfect example because Ospreay was pretty low last year. I want to say he was like 20 something. 17. Okay, I might be thinking of the year before.
Yeah, but I got it right here because I was looking at it. Yeah. He was 17, 27, 7.
And now he's 3. He's 3 this year.
Without winning a world championship.
A world title.
Which is remarkable and rare. And
because of all those gauntlet matches he wins.
It's that you have the international title, which we rate as, I don't know what AEW considers it as, but the way they present it is it's the number 2 title. I mean, it's the second most prestigious, even if the TNT was technically above it. No, it's the international title. The other thing is that Ospreay had that bidding war. He was going everywhere and beating everyone. He was the hottest free agent in wrestling for a few months, or I guess the anticipation before he became a free agent. I guess he actually signed pretty quickly. But you have all that. Plus, then he gets into AEW. He's immediately top 3 most popular guys in the entire company. Yeah. I mean, you could say, I think there were some weeks there where he's top and
top babyface in the whole thing. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So you look at all those things together, plus what he does in the ring, and I think he's doing the best in-ring work of his career. I think, for someone who was a little skeptical of some of his matches, sometimes I would count myself up among those, let it breathe a little bit, even though I like the fast-paced, spot-driven wrestling, but the nuances that he has put into his work over the last few years, I mean, he's just gotten so good. So you look at all of that together. If he doesn't win a world title, I don't know if he'll be top 3 next year. We'll see. But I think he certainly earned that spot this year.
For sure. And I think, when we talk about Will, specifically for me, I mainly I keep tabs on New Japan. I'll watch Wrestle Kingdom every year, but I mainly watch AEW, WWE. North American wrestling is my wheelhouse, right? So I knew that Will Ospreay was a great wrestler. I knew he was one of the best wrestlers in the world, but his promos and how he shows up in the non-wrestling, the non-wrestling side of being a professional wrestler, since he's been in AEW, that's really what's kind of blown my mind, because I did not know he was as good a babyface promo as he is. Like you said, it was immediate. He got there and it was like, this should be the new face of the company immediately. And I just didn't know he had that side to him. So, but I see him at number 3 and I'm like, yeah, that is, especially when you see, obviously number 1 is Cody Rhodes, as he calls himself, QB1 of WWE. Like you said, it is the biggest company in the world. He has been the undisputed champion since WrestleMania, but the whole year was him chasing that belt, back-to-back Royal Rumble winner. Again, he's clearly the top guy in the company. He's over as Rover, still is over as Rover. I think it was a pretty clear-cut choice for me. I don't know how much he won number 1 by, but it felt like it was.
This was one of the easier ones.
Yeah, you see him at number 1, and you're like, "That. Who else could it be?" Who else could it be?
He checked off every box, and I'll add. We have technical ability in there, which is the matches and the quality of the matches. His match has been awesome too, and he's been one of the most active wrestlers in the industry. He's been, which he certainly doesn't have to. He's earned the right to have, if not a full Roman Reigns schedule, he could just go and work a house show once or twice a month. But he's like at every show. He's hit multiple events in a single day a couple of times.
He's crazy. He's at all events too. Like when we were in Cleveland, I think he was scheduled to be at every appearance that they had. Like he is just a workhorse extraordinaire. So that makes total sense. We got the boss man in the chat real quick. Want to know, is there anybody that you felt was ranked too low this year in your personal opinion? And then to couple that, is there anybody that you went to bat for on this list where you were like, I'm putting my foot down, this person needs to be here? Or was it all kind of just smooth sailing?
Oh my gosh. This is actually hard because even though I'm in promotional mode for this, we're already working on the women's 250 issue.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember where my head was at when we started all this. By the time we ended it, I felt that we were in a pretty good place. I think you could make an argument, even though it wasn't during the evaluation period that Gunther won the world title. I think there is an argument that he could be a couple of spots higher. I don't know. I don't know that Damian Priest had a better year than him, even with the world title win. Just looking at what Gunther did as Intercontinental Champion, I mean, he was one of the top stars. He was number one in the rankings week after week after week.
Yeah, he's the one. Like obviously top 10, no debate for me. But I see him at 9, and I look at that and I go, yeah, he could swap with. He could swap with any of them. Moxley, MJF, Damian Priest. I could even be talked into him swapping at 4 with Rollins, to be honest. And I know Rollins was the world champ. They created the world heavyweight title.
But he was a bit less active,
But it was less active. He was banged up a little bit multiple times throughout the year. And I know Gunther became world champion just at SummerSlam, but he's lost once all year. It was at WrestleMania for the IC title. You can make an argument that the IC title matters now more than ever, strictly because of him. So he was somebody that I saw that I was like, look, I would not be complaining if I was number 9 on this list at all. But I could make an argument that he's a top 5.
Speaking of top 10s, for maybe the fans of this list who don't watch as much international and maybe look at this thing optically, like I looked at this top 10 this year and I didn't really have any complaints. I was like, that makes a lot of sense all the way through. But you see a guy like Mystico, and this is probably where you get a lot of flack as the guy, the head face of this list. And then he's behind, he's in front of at 10, Samoa Joe,
Sami Zayn, Drew McIntyre,
Danielson that we talked about earlier. Sure. How did Mystico slide into that top 10 in front of some of these heavy hitters for maybe those fans that don't know what Mystico brings to the table?
So I think a couple of those guys, I think the Samoa Joes and Bryan Danielsons, I think people who at least know what the list is, and they're not just thinking it's a random ranking of wrestlers based on how good we think they are in the ring, which, folks, that's not it. If you haven't figured that out by now.
Well, you heard it here first. If you haven't,
first and the 700th time I've said it. But I think people who are going to go to bat for Samoa Joe and Bryan Danielson understand why Mystico is special. They've seen him on AEW even. But Mystico is the top wrestler in Mexico, and he has a history in the top 10 with this is not why he received the ranking, but just a fun fact. He was number 3 one year and number 5 another year. And if you think there was criticism of him being number 10, you should have seen when he was number 3 and number 5. Similarly, Hijo del Vikingo was a number 5 last year, and there was a lot of flack for that. But guess what? Wrestling is not only in the US and Canada and Japan. It's in Mexico, it's in Europe, it's everywhere. So you have someone like Mystico being the top star in Mexico decades after he did previously. And for those who don't know Mystico by his name, he was the original Sin Cara in WWE. Yes. He was a star in Mexico before that. The WWE run, nobody thinks that was a success.
Great. Yeah.
No. And he kind of floundered a little bit when he went back to Mexico, but eventually he went back, he transitioned to a couple of different names, and now he's back under the original gimmick. He's doing fine in ring work. It's not at the level when he was in his 20s, but it's impossible, but he's still fantastic. And multiple world championships in the sub heavyweight class during the period. The top heavyweight wrestler in terms of championships for CMLL was Gran Guerrero, who did not have enough matches to qualify. Just not as big a star or as big a deal as Mystico anyway.
Yeah.
So I think, even if he had enough matches, he would not have been near the top 10, whereas Mystico, I think, is a strong number 10.
Yeah, I think so. And like we said, we mentioned Gunther. To round out the rest of it, we have Jon Moxley at 8. We have MJF at 7. You had mentioned Damian Priest at 6. Tetsuya Naito, who won the G1, Wrestle Kingdom, number 5, right in the middle of this list. He was really the main top guy of New Japan for the majority of the year. So I think that is more than fitting. Rollins is at 4. And then we have Will Ospreay, who we mentioned at 3. Cody at 1. The one guy we haven't mentioned yet, number 2, Swerve Strickland, clearly rose to main event star of the company status in AEW. The feud with Hangman is, in my opinion, you can make an argument it's the best feud that the company's ever told. It's been violent. It's been great. Swerve Strickland really elevated his game. And I know, it's pretty clear cut that Cody was going to be number 1, but if Cody didn't have the year that he had,
yes,
we're probably looking at Swerve Strickland as a clear number 1.
Not only that, I think, so to paraphrase something Al Castle said on the PWI podcast earlier today, if Swerve Strickland was up against the competition from last year, he would have been number 1.
Yeah.
So he had that strong of a year. I think last year it was a little bit like more up for grabs. Seth Rollins ended up taking it. Roman Reigns was wrestling a little bit less. Seth technically had the belt that was less established. He had to make it more established and make it mean something. Whereas you have Swerve this year being the top breakout star in AEW. You have, even before he had the championship, he just had this really strong run up to it. He was one of the top scorers in the Continental Classic, more or less fell out of that. He wasn't a triple threat, so he didn't really, he didn't look any worse for the wear on the way out.
Yep, for sure.
Beat Hangman 3 times in a row, beat Samoa Joe for the championship, has done well in the role of world champion. Cody Rhodes just had this like untouchable year. Nobody was going to beat him this year, but I think any other year, most other years at least, I think Swerve would have been a strong number 1 for the year that he had this year.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we have, you had mentioned her earlier.
She's
have our friend Kristen.
Come on in, Kristen.
Kevin
Spencer,
and not me.
Saturday.
I'm hurt. And then she said, "Hi, fellas."
Kristen, if you commit right now,
said,
you can come on next
Kevin
week.
She said Kevin is much better at this, but she'll be here for the 250. When they release the 250, we'll have Kristen Ashley on the show to talk about the 250. So
Kristen has been fantastic with that. She really gets into like scheduling the meeting. She did a ton of research ahead of like kind of the pre-ranking stuff I talked about. Just so good.
She's awesome. Yeah, Kristen, you're welcome anytime you want. All you have to do is say, "Hey, I want to come on the show," and we'll just put you on the show.
That's it. Sometimes it's.
I know that we get close on time. Do you do anything for the Mr. Irrelevant, so to speak, the 500 Blue Pain, not anymore because he's not allowed to say that. Does he get like a special gift, special shout out as the Mr. Irrelevant? And who was 501? Please tell me it was Marco Stunt for my own personal reason.
He did make a return.
Not enough matches, though. Not enough matches.
Okay, so yeah, nothing special, but like number 500 usually does have the picture in the magazine, and then kind of like the infamous notoriety of that. There's actually a really cool documentary coming out next week, I believe, from Dustin Wilson, Big Dust, who is number 500 in 2022.
Yes, I actually saw a preview for this. It looks very good.
Yeah, and he goes and he talks to a lot of former number 500s. It's very entertaining. But yeah, Blue Pain, formerly Blue Cane, also wrestles under the name Memes and is on Twitter as Wrestling Memes. Yeah, so held some regional championships in the UK, drew the attention of Matt Cardona into a feud, and he more than earned that 500 spot. Number 501, coincidentally, is the friends we made along the way.
Oh, there we go. I like it. So obviously now you guys, this has grown, like you said, to 3 separate lists now. You have the PWI 500, you have the women's 250, and now we have a tag team list. So
God help me, yeah.
I know, yeah. And you already said, hey, I'm going to try to figure it out, but we're already working on the women's list. So now
the PWI top 750s coming out.
So if we're just looking at the PW 500, obviously it just comes out this past Tuesday. We're going to wait a year for the next one. But when do you guys start chatting with each other about, hey, okay, because obviously it goes, like you said, August to July. So we're already in the criteria for next year's list. But at what point, and obviously it's probably different now with the other lists you're working on now, but at what point do you guys start to really get like, okay, we need to start meeting and we need to start having these conversations about this list for, like, how far in advance does that happen?
So we used to do it in the back half of May. Since we've pushed the evaluation, the production schedule has shifted slightly, and we're out 9 times a year now. So we do have, which by the way is an increase. We're 9 instead of 6. It's a lot of, if anything, it's usually the opposite with magazines these days. So proud of that. But we've pushed it back a little bit. So usually beginning of June, like first week or so of June is when we'll have. I mean, we're certainly like having conversations informally between us right now. Oh, it's looking like so and so. I think this year we were in May and we're like, nobody's going to be Cody this year. It wasn't official, but we were all saying that to each other. Like it's just it's not going to
be hard to top what he's done. You know, carrying.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I love that. And then so now. Yeah, now working on 3 lists, like you said, that must be, you know, what you're working on one comes out, you're immediately working on the other, another one comes out, and then it's just boom, boom, boom. So,
and then it's the awards issue, which is fan voted, but you know, I'm counting up all the ballots and all that stuff. So.
Man.
We'll count some ballots for you, Kevin. We got you.
Why not? Okay, come down to Pennsylvania. Well,
he's not too far.
I'm not too far away.
I know we're getting close on the time. You said you had about a half hour. If we could maybe we'll put a bow on it for you because I know you're a busy man. Overall, like, what is maybe your ultimate goal for these lists? What would you like to see as like something just from your own for personal sake, like, oh, I'd love to see this become this part of this list or whatever it may be. You have like a goal in mind, or are you just happy with what you're putting out now? And
that's so open-ended, and that's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
I like seeing firsts, and we don't want to force it. We don't want to. So something that's been pointed out, we've never had a black wrestler top the 500, which is not. I'm not proud of that. That's just how it's, but it is based heavily off, what is being booked and put forward. And I think a lot of other years it could have been Swerve Strickland with the year he's had this year. But he's the highest ranked black wrestler since The Rock in 2002, I think maybe, or 2000.
The Rock was never number 1, huh?
Isn't that nuts? Right.
That's crazy.
So I don't know that I would have to go and look at like the stats and how people were getting in with the numbers, but Triple H beat him out. And I can't remember there being a year where I would really, I mean, maybe with championships and stuff, but in terms of star power, I don't know. It's again, I would have to look at like his wins and losses and all that stuff. I would like to see that happen. Like the women's list has been a little more diverse in that sense, which is good. The women's list has also had indie wrestlers top it. We had Shuri a couple years ago from Stardom be number 1, which I was very excited about. And again, none of it being forced, being able to look at it and say, wow, somebody broke new ground this year. I love when that happens. And when it does happen, we really like, okay, Shuri's number 1, but are we sure? Like Stardom is definitely not on the level internationally that AEW or WWE is in terms of eyeballs, but it has broken to this new level thanks in large part to the champion doing this incredible work and all this attention it drew. So just stuff like that. I don't know if there's a specific thing I could say I would like to see happen, because I'm happy to see anything new whenever it can happen.
Yeah, and I know we keep on saying last question. But
like 10 more.
Okay.
Just I could talk about this list for days. I know you do talk about it for days.
You guys are my first podcast interview this year, so you have a little bit more of my energy, maybe.
Yeah, we love to hear that. We love to hear.
You hear that? Rest of the podcasts that are following, we're taking all the.
I am not giving who is number 1 on the 250. What is this?
Spencer's trying to get some scoops in the back.
I know who it is. I'm not telling you.
Oh,
all right.
Blink twice if it's.
I'll wait. No, I'm a patient man. I will wait.
How many times have you been offered bribes, so to speak, to maybe move up a list or reveal the name?
People joke about it a lot.
Yeah.
People joke about it a lot, but I never actually no one's ever Venmo'd me or anything like that.
I will give you I'll give you all of Spencer's money to reveal that.
Well, you just mentioned it, a couple years ago you had Shuri as number 1. When you got, and we talked about Mystico at 10, and when you get the international, the more maybe lesser known worldwide people, now it's more commonplace. So I do feel like it's expected that there are going to be people in the top 5 or 10 that not everybody might know or not, but do you guys, like you mentioned it, like when you talked and you were like, hey, are we sure about this? Do you almost feel like you guys have like a bigger, not pressure might not be the right word, but like if you come out with a list and Shuri's number 1 and not everybody might not know who she is, do you almost feel like when you have that conversation, like, hey guys, are we sure about this? We need to back this up about why we did this.
We absolutely have that conversation
about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's exactly, it's more of it's not are we making the wrong decision so much as let's be confident when we put this forward so we can, what's it going to say in the write-up? Like what we know this is right. We feel it in our guts, but how are we going to present this to everybody else out there? Especially again, where it's someone, and the most awesome thing happened, at least what I saw in terms of like online discourse with Shuri. So that when she was first number 1, there were people who were, who's that? I don't know what is a Google? And then there were some other people who were like, something that happens in general with the women's ranking is there's less nasty discourse. It's still there, but it's less because people are like, hey guys, let's celebrate women being ranked and their excellence being upheld in like an issue. It's kind of cool. So which is I I'm not patting myself on the back for that. I didn't create the list. I can't take any credit for it. But I'm happy that the magazine does it in part because of that. But someone like Shuri is number 1, and you have at first some people were skeptical. And I actually saw several people in the comments section, which I try not to venture there too much, saying things like, what are some of her matches I can check out? She must be really good if she was above Bianca Belair. She must be really good if she was above Charlotte Flair, if she was above everybody else, Jamie Hayter, and then so on and so on.
This is that's the best favorite part of the list for me. When I started reading it and really diving into it and becoming wrestling content created, I took it all in, and I go, who is this person that I don't? And it's like, just like you said, hit that Google machine. Maybe you'll end up finding somebody that you absolutely love.
You could find your new favorite wrestler.
Right. Like Vikingo, for instance. Like Vikingo was one of those guys for me where it was like, oh shit, who is this badass dude? Like, why is he ranked above some of my favorite people? Let me check him out. And now I can't, every time he's on TV, I have to watch it. You guys do such an amazing job, man. You. I just got to say that you take a lot of shit, but you also make a lot of wrestlers' days and give them a platform that maybe other places don't. And I commend you guys for that.
And we do explain who these people are. That's the thing. People will look at a list online, especially the top 10. Why is Vikingo great? Oh, I don't know. Read the whole page where we talk about why he's number 5.
About why he's there, you just see like me, like I have the list to my side right here. I don't have I've read the page by pages, but I don't have that. I just have the list.
With the short bios, like, okay, this is only like 55 words, so maybe we didn't get it across in that. But when it's the top 10 and it's a whole page, just read the page.
Yeah, and I guess, I think this will officially be at least my last question, but I have noticed over the last,
what do you mean? What is that?
3 to 5 years, that one of my favorite things when that list drops now are seeing all the wrestlers on Twitter and social media being happy.
Not to spoil anything, but there's look at this. It's not just
for everybody. There's
you got options.
You can read why they're there. But seeing all the wrestlers show their blurb or show their photo or show their list and like being proud of the work they've put in to get on this list. Like, it's very hard sometimes as humans to kind of be happy about, we are our own worst critics and all stuff like that, whatever. But to see, I feel like over the last 3 years, but like 3 to 5 years, like on Tuesday, I was just scrolling through my social media and I would just see wrestler after wrestler posting there, hey man, I made number 278, man. That's awesome. I'm like only up from here.
Next year I'm coming.
You can just see how proud they are to have made that list. And as somebody who is involved so heavily with the list, and Kristen too, and everybody, like, that has to make you feel good that the wrestlers are so proud to really showboat the work that they bust their asses, you know, and to showboat the work, that has to feel incredible.
It's probably the main reason that I don't, you know, put out the tweet with the cover and then just walk away from my computer for a few days.
Yeah.
Because I just want to see the people who are happy to be there. And it's not always someone who's brand new to the list. Sometimes you'll just have someone like, I don't know, like a Mustafa Ali, 19 this year, higher than he's ever been. And he was like on Twitter, you know, I don't want to say bragging about it, but he was showing it off. And like, that's an experienced wrestler who is, you know, been on our TV screens for so many years. If he's not above it, maybe a great thought to leave with is Cody Rhodes in the magazine, in the interview when he speaks with senior writer Al Castle, says that the first time I don't know that you have to take this like completely to heart if there's someone watching like who they were kind of like a lower number than they thought they'd be or whatever. But Cody said the easiest way to spot a liar is when they tweet saying that no one cares about where they rank on this list. We all care, and I care very deeply. So that's the WWE champion said that. So I mean, it's honestly kind of humbling as a
how could you not how could you not even just be slightly curious as a wrestler going like, did I make it?
At least curious. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Brody King, if you were watching this, Brody King did not qualify, did not have enough singles matches. I saw he tweeted about it. I think he was joking around, but he said, I'll have to try harder next year. But like, you think we didn't forget Brody King. He just didn't have enough singles matches.
Brody King is the man. We love Brody King.
I wouldn't want to upset Brody King, but
I certainly don't. That may be why I brought it up in part, but I'm a big fan of his work.
If you see me, Brody, like, please, it was not,
Brody, Kevin's good people. Relax.
I loved you and I think you should leave. So like,
hilarious. All right. Well, I think on that note, we almost went an hour here with you, so we respect and appreciate your time for hanging on a little extra with us. This was a lot of fun. Be sure to pick up the issue digitally. The PWI 500. It is, I would assume, it's the largest issue you have every year. The highest. Is it the highest selling and all that? Yeah.
And actually, we are getting. I mean, we still have some copies. I don't want to say it's going to sell out today or anything like that, but we are running out of pre-order copies. So if you don't get a chance, if you're watching this a little bit later or you can't pre-order a copy right now, you can always get the digital edition, but it will be on newsstands across the US and Canada starting October 1st.
Love it. Love it. Kevin, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it. It was another year, another great list. Yeah. Thank you for having the time and coming on and talking some PWI 500. We appreciate you, my man.
The best.
Thank you so much.
My nerd is just
book it. We'll do it again. We'll do it again next year if you are down. We will gladly love to do this again.
Any list, the 250,
literally
the tag list, you're in.
Kristen,
Kristen said she's coming on for the 250. You might have to fight her for the spot.
We love lists.
No, Kristen. That's all Kristen. That's her baby. So
okay, fair enough.
All right, thank you,
Kevin.
Thank
you so much.
We appreciate you.
Take care.
Thank you, Kevin McElvaney of PWI. The 500 just came out. Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
I'm not lying. My nerdy analytic numbers list is at a full. Fully forked right now.
Yeah, ever since. Whoa.
As we say on Saturdays for exposure,
bro. We talk about this list every year. We've been doing this. This is our 4th calendar year, but we've talked about the list and we've made time for it the week it's been released, and the women's list too. Every year that we've been able to do this. We had Warren on last year. We've had Warren on a couple years.
Yeah, Warren's usually our go-to guy for the 250 because
we're going to have Kristen.
Kristen, if you're still listening, you're a busy lady. You're very busy.
Well,
you're a hard get here.
She's already committed. She committed in the chat, so we can hold her to that at least. Someone take a screenshot.
I also have her in the DMs committed as well, so it's booked.
Yeah, so it's one of those things to me where like we clearly think this list is cool as hell. We talk about it all the time. So to be able to get the people that we've had to come on and actually talk through how this works and, you know, what they look at and like how they came up with certain people, certain places, that's always a treat. And you know,
I've been one to ask
do the rankings
Yeah.
every year on your own on the Pluggo side.
It'll be starting this week. It'll be the 7th year I've done the PWI top 100, my own rank, my Fall Madness tournament.
You do like a March Madness type thing with the first
March Madness for
the first. Nope,
I go 68 now. I go
68. You do the play-in games.
I do the play-in games now, and then I take the last 32 and do an NIT style bracket at the end there. So, and then I'll do that for the women's as well. It'll be the 7th.
Have you made it to the tag teams yet, or is that list still a little too not?
I will say this: the tag team list of the 50 is tough because it cuts off 16 teams, 18 teams, something like that. I might probably not even doing the math correctly. It's 18 teams, and so then you have to come up with a bunch of play-in games, and it gets kind of convoluted.
That's fair.
So I haven't decided the best way to go about it, but maybe I will this year. Maybe I won't. I don't know. We'll see.
All right.
You never know, but yeah, I love this list, and I'm so excited. We got to have Kevin on and talk about it because
that was a lot of fun. Hopefully, we can make that a annual thing with Mr. Kevin. I enjoyed him a lot. He was a lot of fun. So we are basically we're at the hour mark, man. That was almost as perfect timing.
He gave us.
He said, "I'll give you a half hour." He gave us literally about 55 minutes.
To be fair, though, we did bombard him with like 900 questions.
That is true.
But he gave really great answers, really good
great
insight.
Job by the chat as well. Great questions by the chat during that too. Like when we have these people on like that, like feel free to ask whatever you want. We're like, well, we're gonna ask these people what you guys want to hear too. So that was a lot of fun. All right.
Got to talk about Blue Pain. So excited.
True. Now he can't just be Blue Cane because of Kane, right?
He can't.
WWE was like, no.
Yeah, they're like, no, dude.
That's what I figured.
Next year's PWI 500 wrestling beards. 500 wrestling beards.
Listen,
I don't know if we can do 500.
We used to do a thing on our social medias, Beard of the Day. If you guys remember that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Beard of the Day will be coming back on our social medias, but I think you'll be seeing some more, Beard of the whatever.
Let's be honest. We haven't been doing right by you guys. We need to do better. So we are going to start tackling our socials better.
You saw it. We had
being more present and doing more stuff.
Yeah, we had a social media exclusive earlier this week where we did
Justin, I'm calling it now. He's never winning. Ever. What was that thing? Bruh.
We had a social media exclusive earlier this week where we did the tiers where I kind of tiered up the I would love to have Righteous Reg on, but he's usually busy on Thursday nights.
Yeah, he does.
He does the Ring of Honor show with Kate, does he not?
No, he does.
No, what's he doing on TNA?
Yeah, he's with Denise.
No, that's on Wednesdays, I thought, after Dynamite.
Oh, that's right.
I thought he was with Kate for Ring of Honor. Maybe.
That's SP3.
I thought that was.
But he does both. I don't know. He's a busy guy, but if we can work something out with Reg,
but especially
the PWI 100 or 500,
PWI 500, that would be dope to get Reg or any of those people that work on that list.
Yeah, if you make lists, we'll talk to you.
We would definitely love to have Righteous Reg on here at some point. That would be awesome. All right, so we got to talk a little All Out. We can talk a little bit, I thought Dynamite last night was good.
Yeah.
I might have yelled very loudly to end firmly AEW today.
I didn't catch it because I was at work, but I know that you were teetering on the verge of yelling last night on the Market.
Yeah, I held it off.
Podcast.
I held it off. That's beauty. Look at that, huh? I held it off.
So please let it out. Because I think we're aligned in what you're probably going to yell about. Yeah.
Well, here's my thing. Do we want to talk about All Out first, or should I just?
We can.
Okay. I need to preface this. I feel like I need to preface every time I lose my mind. I need to preface this. This is
just lose it. Just lose it. Go Eminem, right? Nope.
Yeah, I knew what that was. I am an avid. I was at one point. I could recite most of his songs.
Shout out to Eminem.
Choose not to. Okay. All right. I thought All Out was fantastic. Okay. I thought All Out was fantastic. I thought every match was at least good, but I thought the majority of the matches were great to excellent.
Yeah.
I thought Pac and Will Ospreay, from an in-ring standpoint, was probably the best match of the night. However, the cage match with Hangman and Swerve was my favorite match of the night. I am a Hangman mark. He is my favorite professional wrestler of all the time. He did. I'm not going to correct him. He's a guest. Did you notice when I talked about him, I said Hangman?
I know, and I didn't say anything because we had a guest on.
I was there.
I was sitting there like that meme with the kid who's like, I just want to call you out.
Scott was there. He heard it. It was I got angry. And
Alex, I'm gonna have to either see that or you're gonna have to tell me when it happened, and I can clip it for you.
Yeah. All right. So okay, we're gonna talk. Yeah. So last night during Dynamite, the main event is a Casino Gauntlet tag team match, correct? To be the number one contenders at Grand Slam for the Young Bucks.
Yep.
Earlier in the night, at the beginning of the night, we see Don Callis. He's back there with Fletcher, Takeshita, and Will Ospreay. And he says, hey, Will, you've never lost one of these gauntlet matches. I think you should team up with Kyle and go try to bring the tag team championships to the Callis family.
Which I loved based on the fact that I thought that was the moment that they were going to blow this up.
Okay. All right.
Go on. I was there. I was still in on it at this point.
Ospreay, yeah, I'm not against it at this moment. Ospreay then tries to decline. But Don Callis says, hey, you kind of owe me a favor. If you do this for me, we'll call it even. We'll say the favor's over. Just do this for me. And then Fletcher basically says, hey, man, like, I'd love to win the tag titles with my best friend. Like, let's do it. Like, this will be fun. And Ospreay agrees. Takeshita, not vibing at all with the decision. That's kind of separate for what I'm going to be upset about. So then later on in the evening, the Young Bucks cut a promo backstage. And they say, hey, we hear what you guys have been saying on social media and everywhere about our title reign. And they go, it's not our fault. And this is not verbatim. This is kind of just, a general idea of what they said. They said, it's not our fault that that your favorite other tag teams and the other tag teams in this division have not stepped up to beat us or take our place. That was the gist. And then they said, but we're going to be out there. We're going to be watching what goes on. Okay. Then they proceed to have a Casino Gauntlet tag team match for the number one contenderships, in which you can go up to 21 teams. There were only 9 teams by the time we got this pinfall.
Well, they also started it at 9:45.
Well, yeah. They give you the preface of this can go up to 21 teams, but that doesn't mean we're getting 21. That's fine. I don't care about that. What I care about is most people have been very vocal about how the tag team division and kind of all of WWE and AEW currently, but in AEW for this calendar year has not been great. The Bucks have defended the belts for like twice since they've gotten them. There's not a ton of like real good tag team wrestling on AEW. Like there's good matches, but like there's just not a lot of teams that matter, right? Yeah. You have an opportunity. No matter who won that match last night, they're not beating the Bucks at Grand Slam. I think we can all agree the Bucks are probably retaining at Grand Slam. Yeah. You have a match where you can establish or try to build a new star tag team in your division by having them go against the Young Bucks. And the team that you had win was the only team that is not an established tag team in the match. Now, I understand it's Will Ospreay. I understand it's Kyle Fletcher. I understand their history, and I love both guys. I am not upset that I get to watch Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher versus the Young Bucks at Grand Slam in a few weeks. That match is going to rule.
Yeah.
But if you want to get your tag team division over and you want to build your tag team division, how about you have one of your actual tag teams win a Casino tag team gauntlet match? Not 2 guys that were put together earlier on the show. You literally told us that your tag team division is shit. You literally told us that.
Mm-hmm.
It is so annoying to me. It's so annoying to me.
Crab, I want to say Crab Cincinnati is if you build it, they will come. Welcome to the chat, friends. Dami Fed say gotta be a split. That's what I thought they were gonna go with this last night, and we talked about it last night. Shout out to the Mark Order, go follow them, they rule. I thought you were going to do the split there because again, it was too perfect of a like, hey, like with the way Callis like lobbed it up. You never lose gauntlet matches. We need you. You owe me a favor. Why not do something to eliminate him from that and set up something in the future? And like you said, because we had this discussion around All In when the Acclaimed and the Bucks was the story. They took forever to get the Acclaimed and the Bucks match popping. And then they insert FTR, which only said to me, they have no trust in once was your strongest part of your roster was your tag division. Correct. And now you've got all these teams and you're sitting here going, so you, and on top of it, you told me there were 10 more teams that you were going to.
Well, that's how they
awesome, right. Yeah, in theory, but you like, have all these trios teams, you have all these tag teams, you have all these.
Did you see? And you're giving Evil Uno's tweet after the match. He said, "Oh crap, we were next." Like the Dark Order.
Oh, that's funny. See now that stuff I can get behind, but that's what I'm saying. Like, heat one of these teams up, dude, put them on a run.
Dude, did you hear? And again, look do you remember how the Acclaimed got over? Not now. I know we're all kind of done with the Acclaimed, kind of. I get it. But do you remember how the Acclaimed like got over? They slowly got over on TV, but it was really they were going for as they were building up. They went for the tag titles and they lost that match, and everybody was so pissed off that they lost that match that they got even more over. That by the time they actually won the titles. They were the most over tag team in the company for like a year. They would not have gotten as over as they did if you didn't throw them in some of the situations you threw them in to see if they could sink or swim. I look at that last night and I see, and again, did you hear the fucking pop the Outrunners got last night, man?
Oh, yeah. It was big.
And then they went in
which was a bit surprising to me, not because I don't think it's just I didn't realize
I think they do a lot. I think they're like kind of
they're starting to grow, but I didn't realize it was like that quick. I thought this was going to be their their coming out party.
So well, they had their first win on Collision over the weekend. They got their first win on television. Crowd lost their mind. I guess they did a lot of independent. I saw SRS tweet that they did a lot of independent work in the Kentucky area. So that might have been like hey, we like you guys, but we know who you are from around here.
That's good on your nationally televised program to get a pop like that. Get size.
But when I look at that, and again, I'm not saying that the Outrunners should have won or anything. I mean, I wouldn't have been against it. But like, I look at something like that and I'm like, that the Outrunners have that pop. They have that moment where they go in there, they clear out the ring. The crowd is losing their shit over those guys. We know the Young Bucks are beating whoever they face. Do you not think that the Outrunners, I'm just using them as an example because they got the big pop last night. I think I could say the same thing about MXM as well. I thought that that's a newer team. If either of those teams win that match last night and they get thrown in a tag match with the Young Bucks and they have a great tag match at Grand Slam where they almost win at times, but they lose. Do you not think that would get that team more over?
Quizplex Legends MXN, by the way.
But do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get it. We've had this discussion for ever since All In with the tag stuff, and then on top of it, you couple the fact that it seemed like you're having these champion versus champions like Claudio,
another one, Ospreay,
Claudio, and the trios champs.
The trio champions. Pop was going after a different belt. They were going after the tag belt. Like, it's the same shit.
It's just like you could do Grand Slam where you put this established hot tag team against the Bucks, you heat them up, and then you have Ospreay do something with his international championship, and then the card just becomes even. I know there's only a finite number of minutes in a show. There's only 2 hours, and that's with commercials. But you're telling me you couldn't have figured out a way to navigate that? I don't know. I'm not mad. We're not mad because the match is going to hump. It's going to rule, but we don't need it. I don't need it.
It's Will Ospreay.
Unless that match ends with Takeshita kicking the head off of Will Ospreay, only because I want to see this I want to see the Don Callis side of Don Callis that we all know, and it's coming.
Take him out. You could have got to that without. And again, like I said, the Young Bucks versus Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher is going to be amazing. Will Ospreay, the best wrestler in the world, in my opinion, right now, currently. And
well,
Kyle
he's
Fletcher,
actually number 3, but
well,
you know,
he is.
whatever.
He's technically number 3, but in my world, in ring, he's the best currently.
Didn't you listen to anything Kevin just said?
And I have been glowing for months about how Kyle Fletcher has elevated himself and taken advantage of the opportunity he's been given with Mark Davis injured. It's not about those two guys. It's about, your tag team division is struggling. You had your champions cut a promo acknowledging that you hear the noise about your tag team division, and then you pick the only non-tag team in the match to win the match.
And why not Takeshita? Why not put Takeshita and Fletcher in that thing?
Takesha's dealing with Okada.
I understand, but Ospreay's dealing with other shit too. So that's a mute point at that. They're all dealing with, I'm just saying, if you're Don Callis, you just basically just said you've got no faith in Takeshita. So
it just,
good luck with that.
I'm just looking at it and I'm like, dude, like, why? And again, I get it. They're going to push the Will Ospreay doesn't lose gauntlet matches things, and that's fine. Will Ospreay's great.
Yeah.
He's great. But like, it's one of those things to me where it's like, no one is going to take your tag division seriously if you are literally showing me and telling me that your tag.
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense to me. It just didn't make sense to me. And like, again, you can, they could have just lost that match. And then next week, you can get to the point where we're doing the breakup with, because they could blame Ospreay for it or whatever. You can get to where we all know this is probably going without them having to be in this match. And and like Krabby said, like Krabby says right there, Ospreay doesn't need to be put over any more than he already is. We already know, dude. We already know that this guy is top of the top. Like I don't need to see him fight for a tag team championship. And I just felt like it was a missed opportunity to either build a new team. Like if MXM wins that, they are already at near the top of the division. If the Outrunners out of nowhere win that, they're already at the top of the division. Think about the other teams that were in there. You know, like, the Acclaimed was in there. FTR was in there, but FTR and the Grizzled Young Veterans kind of threw themselves out together, which, again, the most un-FTR-like thing that FTR would do. It's almost as unlike if they would purposefully get somebody disqualified in a tag match. The two most non-FTR-like things in the history of anything that is their character they've done in the last month. Makes no sense. I don't know. I just looked at that and I said, there's 8 or 9 legitimate, established tag teams that have been in your company for at least a little bit.
Yeah.
And I understand who Will Ospreay is. I understand what Kyle Fletcher is and where Kyle Fletcher is going to be. Because him and Ospreay, like, obviously from a hierarchy standpoint, they're not close, but they are close to me. Like, they're top of the company, top of the world wrestlers. I understand how great they are. I understand why they would win a match like that, but I think you absolutely did a disservice to your tag team division by not having one of your tag team wrestlers are I've heard Sean say this all the time, Sean Rossap. If you are a tag team wrestler and that's all you really do, you are a tag team specialist. Now, I know Will Ospreay is one of the best wrestlers in the world, but he's not a regular tag team wrestler. Okay, it shouldn't just translate that one of the best singles wrestlers in the world is automatically one of the best tag team wrestlers in the world, because it's 2 different ways to wrestle.
Yeah.
So you told me that your tag team specialists on your roster are not as good as 2 single guys that were literally put together an hour and a half before this match started, regardless of their history, regardless of their friendship.
Now tell me how you really feel about it.
I got a lot angry earlier today. I was swearing. I was yelling. It was I've had time to process it, so I'm a little more calm. I did raise my voice a little bit. I'm a little more calm, but it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense to me, and it just bothered me. I don't know why, because clearly Ospreay and Fletcher are you can make an argument. Ospreay's the biggest name in the match, so like I get it.
Oh, he's here.
Yeah, well,
hi Tanner Lee.
He's talking about me right now. We don't got to talk about that.
Kicking Out podcast. How are you?
We don't have to talk about other things, but he's talking about me right now.
I know what he's about to do, and I'm not.
You don't know that. You don't know that.
I know Tanner. Tanner's a heel.
Maybe, but you don't know that until it happens.
Right,
but like
fair.
honestly, that is it. Just rubbed me the wrong way, and I probably care about it way more than I should because at the end of the day, the Bucks are just going to retain, and who gives a shit? But like at the same time, it's like, bro, but put a team in there that can get something from this. What does Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher get from this match?
You gotta let it play out, man.
What do they get from this match? MXM, the Outrunners.
This is what I want. This is what they'll get
a lot more from this match and a losing effort than
Ospreay
and Fletcher are going to get from it.
They're going to get. God damn it! They're going to get Fletcher. It's all part of a plan. Fletcher's probably in on it too. They lose, and then we'll get Kyle Fletcher versus Ospreay for the international championship, which will be absolutely dope. But they're using it as a vehicle, and it's a way to
you're using one of your other championships.
Tanner, I haven't kicked. We've only kicked a handful of people out here because we have a really nice chat, and we have lots of really cool people. Watch your mouth.
I don't even know what that means.
I know what it means, and watch your mouth. I'm not saying it. You know how we play it here. If you want it to be said.
I don't know what that means.
You got to spend the money.
That's a train, is it not?
Super chats.
Is it train?
That's how I don't know what I know what it is, but it's garbage. I know.
But is it a train? Like what is it? A caboose? I don't understand. Purdue's the Boilermakers. Correct? Is a Boilermaker a train?
It's a team with a bunch of identity crisis, I guess. I don't know. I don't know
what the train up plug on. Like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, they do need to train up to play on our level.
You're not helping me.
I'm not saying it. I don't want to say it. Tanner can put it in the chat. I'm not saying it.
I'm lost. I don't care about college football.
Go Irish, beat Purdue. That's all I'm saying. Saturday's gonna get wild.
I mean, you better.
We better.
You're in trouble. Oh, boiler. That's a boiler?
Yeah,
looks like a fucking train. Is that like the boiler on the front of the train? Is that what they call that?
Sure, I guess. Right. I don't know. Shut up, Tanner. God. Anyway, go check out
Drew Brees, right? Drew Brees went to Purdue.
He did.
He's the best guy. Is he the best guy that ever went there?
He might be. He's probably up there. But go check out Tanner Lee and the Kicking Out podcast every Sunday at 8:30. They're good dudes. Friend of the show. But this week, I'm not a friend of Tanner's.
That's fair. Pluggo's still licking his wounds because his team lost to a fake team. Northern Illinois. I didn't even know they existed.
FCS East. We lost.
I didn't even know they existed. Must have been playing on Heisman.
We must have been.
We're always playing on Heisman. God damn, dude.
We always play on Heisman against lesser opponents. That's just what we
always
do.
And you always play on rookie against bigger ones.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like we can.
Now,
awesome.
I'm going to be honest, and I'm not saying this to be a dick. I'm actually asking you. Did this hurt more? Did it hurt more losing an embarrassing game like this early in the season, or being a team that is in a playoff and gets fucking walloped by a top team? Like, what hurts more? What hurt more? If you can still make the playoffs.
Since I'm an expert in this topic, what hurts more is this one hurt a lot more because they expand to 12 teams.
But shouldn't that help you though?
Listen, they clearly it should help us. They clearly stated that the toughest game on our schedule was the Texas A&M on the road. If we get that done, we should be viable contenders for a spot at top 5. That's as 5's as high as we can go. And it's like we went into Kyle Field, which I don't care who you are. That is impossible.
The hardest place to play.
One of the hardest places to play in the country. We didn't dominate, but we won.
No, you won handily.
Won handily in a convincing way where it's like, okay, cool. And then we come home and we just lay an absolute egg against a team that is now ranked in the top 25. They might be better than expected, but that's not a game that we should be losing. So it definitely, because I look at it like this. People get blown out in the playoffs all the time.
Notre Dame does,
but other schools do too, but nobody talks about it.
No, Oklahoma, I'm looking at you.
Right. Like Oklahoma lost by the same amount, and nobody talks about. But getting there, it stings to lose the playoffs and being that close, and it stings. But at least it's like I know we were good enough to get there. Now I've got to spend the next 10 games going. Are we even gonna make it?
Well, and now you're at a point now where like you probably could lose at most one more game, but it needs to be against like top 5. Like it needs to be against a quality.
We have to lose to USC on the road by like 3.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
It.
Like
that's our margin.
You can't. No offense. I know Tanner's a Purdue guy. I know they're not Northern Illinois where they.
If we lose to Purdue, I'm going to join Asian Joe in Nebraska.
You can't lose to a middling team. Like
this is it.
You can afford maybe one because you're also not in a conference, so you don't have a conference championship to hone in on. You don't have these things, so I think that hurts and helps you. But like, yeah. James Cook has 3 TDs. I have James Cook in one of my fantasy leagues. God bless.
I picked the Dolphins to win that game.
Well, you're a fool because you want to talk about middling. Tagovailoa is about the most mid quarterback
I just thought because it was
ever
in
watched
Miami.
with my eyes. Giving him that type of money. Who the hell are you?
What's that other quarterback that you just couldn't stand?
Kyler Murray.
Yeah, there it is.
Piece of trash. Trash. Did you see what he fucking said this week?
No,
he was asked, hey, okay.
Damn. The game just started.
Listen, here's my thing. People were shitting on the Bills.
Is that like the first quarter?
Jesus no, it's 25. Yeah, it's probably either the second. Yeah, I'd probably say it's probably early or mid-second.
It starts at like 8:30.
8:15 or 8:20, right? Yeah. Here's my thing. People were shitting on the Bills all offseason, like, oh, they're going to stink. First of all, yeah, Steph Diggs is a good player. He's an asshole. If you hear anybody that's ever been his teammate, he's a prick. That's what they say. I don't know, but that's what they say. I don't think there's ever been a guy that's been Steph Diggs' teammate after he left that said a good thing about Steph Diggs. Let's just leave it that way. I understand he's good. They lose him. They lose Gabe Davis, who is as mid as can be. God bless the team that paid him number 1 receiver money for him to be your 4th best receiver. Kidding me? They get rid of these 2 guys, and everyone's like, oh, Buffalo's going to suck. And it's like, do you not remember that they have probably the 2nd best player in the league? Like, if Patrick Mahomes didn't exist, Josh Allen would be the best quarterback in football. Easy. I don't even think it's close, to be honest with you. And I'm biased. I am in the AFC East. Buffalo is not far away. I get more Bills games to watch on television than maybe others. Josh Allen is phenomenal. He is a terrific football player. And Tanner says it right there. Diggs kills locker rooms. I see Diggs leave. I see Gabe Davis leave. And I'm like, what does everybody think that all of a sudden they're going to be 4-13? They're the Buffalo Bills. They've been running the AFC East for 5 years. Now, I don't believe in their coach. I think eventually they need to get rid of him. I don't think they're going to win anything with him as their coach. But Josh Allen is a special player. Yeah, I am not shocked.
Oh, that was my favorite thing. They asked Elway, they're like, what's your biggest regret as a GM? And he's like, passing on Josh Allen.
Yeah, absolutely.
How's Bo Nix treating you? How's Drew Lock? How's
I'll tell you what.
What's
they
another?
They are no Jacoby Brissett. Let me tell you, they are no Jacoby Brissett.
I wonder how many like Broncos quarterbacks Tanner Lee could name, but he has to name it. But he has to name it based on like most recent start, like because they stop in the start, like Trevor Siemian, Russell
Brock Osweiler, Russell Wilson,
Paxton Lynch.
Was there a Rippin in there at one point? Paxton Lynch is a good one. Was there a Rippin? Did Rippin's kids start a game for them? I want to say.
Yeah, I want Tanner to go chronologically since Peyton Manning left the. Peyton Manning left.
Osweiler at first, right? Because everyone was like, he's 6'10", he's gonna be good. He sucked. And then the Texans paid him a boatload of. Was it the Broncos that paid him a boatload? One team paid him a boatload of money.
The Texans.
Was it the Broncos? It was the Texans, right?
Texans gave him a lot of money based on that, and he sucked. It was awesome.
Brett Rippin. I knew it. I knew there was a Rippin. I knew there was a Rippin in there.
This has been your Broncos quarterback minute here at Two Beards.
Oh man. What the hell were we talking about before that?
You were bitching about the tag team division.
No, we're done with that.
We're done with that. But
we're done with that. I just had to get that off my. It just bothered me to no end. But another thing I feel like we got to talk about, which was All Out and last night, we kind of got more of a idea of what's going on with Jon Moxley and his new character. So we've seen over the last couple of weeks, very slow, very calculated talking points, movement, new song. You know, this company's not yours anymore. Recruiting Marina Shafir. So then we see it All Out. And, you know, he's been asking to talk to Darby Allin the last couple of weeks. That's been the thing. I got to talk to you, Darby. I got to talk to you. No, I want to fight. Just got to talk to you. We see Saturday night. We have the Bryan Danielson, Jack Perry world title match. I thought the ending sequence, I thought the last like 5 to 7 minutes of this match were really, really good. But it was really what happened after the match that had people talking. So Danielson retains. Yeah. Not a shock to anybody.
Christian Cage comes out with his cronies.
Christian Cage comes out with his crew, and everyone's like, "Oh shit!"
Here comes the BCC.
Before that happened, Killswitchosaurus, credit Scott for that. Killswitchosaurus comes in and takes out Danielson, and him and Jack Perry have kind of a moment where they look at each other, and the crowd's kind of like, "Hey,
you know, we only need, you know what we needed? We just needed Marco's stunt to complete.
Maybe, yeah, maybe he should have shown up. Who knows?" But everyone's like, "Hey, we remember that. We remember that." And then, he did it. He did it. Manning, Osweiler, Simeon, Lynch, Allen. We didn't remember Allen. And Driscoll. That's a good one. And Case Keenum. Wow. Flacco, Teddy Bridgewater.
I forgot Bridgewater.
Oh, Zach Wilson.
Oh, Russell Wilson's got to be.
Oh, that's right. Russell Wilson. I was like, who the fuck?
But Zach Wilson, too. Yeah, Russell Wilson. And then Zach Wilson's there now with Stidham, who thinks he's an NFL starting quarterback. What a joke.
Well, that's the Patriots in him. Anyway. But you know, you learn behind Tom Brady.
Oh, and Scott saying the rant today was around the 15-minute mark.
Yeah, I went for a while.
I'll look at it. I don't know. We'll see.
I went for a while. So then we see after the match, Killswitch and Jack Perry have their moment. Christian's music hits. We obviously know the history of Jack Perry with both these individuals, and the rest of the patriarchy are in tow. And before they get to the bottom of the ramp, but before Christian can get in the ring, we see Jon Moxley. And Jon Moxley is staring right across from him. And then we see through the crowd, we see Marina Shafir, Wheeler Yuta, Claudio, and Pac. So the whole BCC plus Pac and Shafir are out there. Christian then decides, all right, this is not our time. We're gonna get the hell out of here. We're not getting involved with this. Smart. He outworks everybody. Pluggo.
Sure.
He outworks everybody up here. They get in the ring. Moxley and Danielson embrace. He kisses Bryan Danielson on the forehead.
He outworks. He outworks everybody up here, just like I lift weights up here. Yeah. He don't do no actual work.
Well, you know,
I could do a lot of work up here too.
He gives Daniel Bryan the "I know it was you, Fredo" kiss on the forehead. You know, like it's coming, dude. It's coming. He kisses him. He kind of walks up front. Claudio then is kind of standing right next to Danielson, and you see Moxley kind of give him like the okay. He wallops Bryan with the European uppercut, and I loved Bryan Danielson's reaction. He didn't even sell that he got uppercut. He was just looking at him completely in shock, like a loss for words, like what the hell just happened? And then we see the most controversial thing of all time, apparently. Jon Moxley put a plastic bag over Bryan Danielson's head and suffocates him out, basically. Not to death, apparently. Hopefully. We don't even know.
Just on the brink.
But yes, the crowd is chanting, "This is murder." It's attempted murder at the very least. And you know me, Pluggo. I've been watching wrestling for 30 plus years. I've seen it all. I was rooting for someone to kill someone in the cage match later on in the night. But I was not repulsed by it. I wasn't like, think of the children. I wasn't there or anything like that. But I do think the plastic bag, at least for my taste, smidge, buddy. Just a smidge.
To all you, to all the parents out there who are like outraged by what AEW did, it's not their job.
I was going to say,
not their job to police what your children watch. If you're signing up for an AEW pay-per-view, you know full well what you're getting into. Like Owen historically is a wrestling fan, but I steer clear of some AEW stuff. I let him watch the other stuff.
They're not TV PG. They are TVMA. They have been since their inception. And people do this, and not just wrestling. People do this all the time. They go, think about the kids. Why do I have to think about your kids? The only people that should be thinking about your kids are you, buddy.
Yeah.
It's not anybody else's job to
all the people that are like
your children other than yours, dipshit.
Boot them off the air. Boot them off the air.
People that come out and they say that, whether it's about this on Saturday or it's about an athlete doing something stupid. Now, breaking crimes and shit is clearly different. But like saying something like Charles Barkley in the 90s, I'm not a role model. I never said I was a role model. Same shit, dude. Like, it's your job as a parent. Now, I don't have kids. You got 4 of them. It is your job as a parent to dictate what your kids can see and what they cannot see. I thought Zach on Brunch on Sunday said it perfectly. And you just said it. You just echoed it. He said, it is not AEW's responsibility to be thinking about your kids when they're writing their show.
Yeah. You think Game of Thrones thinks about the children when they write their show?
Of course not. And if you're a parent, that is.
You think Quentin Tarantino gives a shit about your kids when he writes those movies? I don't think so.
And it's not his job to do so. It's his job to make the best movie he can make. And it was AEW's job to tell the best story they could tell. And according to them, it was this. Now, if you're appalled by that, you're allowed to. Like I just said, this wasn't for me fully. I loved the angle. The angle was incredible. But I could have, like I said on Mark Wrote Apart, I said, what was even more disturbing than just the plastic bag in general was the emotionlessness of Jon Moxley when he's doing it. Because he didn't even care. And it was just
Do you think at that point he knew he was going to be number 8 in the PWI top 500 and was pissed about it? It was like, how I'm gonna get up into that top 5 next year? Murder Bryan Danielson.
Maybe. He was gone from June to the end of the whole, I don't know. He
feels slighted. No, but and that's the stuff, the discourse that I saw a lot this week of like, oh, blah blah blah, they shouldn't have done this, they shouldn't have done that. But then we also in the same breath complain that a certain other company, their stories are too, it's all about a bracelet, it's too hokey, it's not, really, we're mad. Like, shut up. Just like, if you don't like it, that's fine. We can have that conversation. You're entitled to your opinion. But the people that are like, they should be canceled. I can't believe they would allow this in wrestling. Like, there's far worse stuff going on in wrestling that I watch. I watch on the indies, and I don't mean worse in the sense of like bad wrestling. I just mean they take it. If you ever watched the Tournament of Death, GCW Tournament of Death, insane.
Yeah. Insane. And again, like, it's just one of those things where I just feel like that is just laziness from parents. Oh, you shouldn't have shown that. My kid watched that. Okay, well, then maybe when you saw it happening, how about you tell your kid to go get a sandwich? Or you say, we're going to go, let's go get a glass of apple juice during this. Just not have your kid watch a TVMA program when AEW's been around for 5 years. We know the shit that AEW does. People get thrown downstairs and they get, it's more violent at times. Like, a dude burned a guy's house down last Wednesday. Drank his blood a year ago.
Well, how am I supposed to explain to my kids that that's not okay?
Pretty simple. Have a fucking conversation with your damn kid. It's not hard.
Say, hey, buddy, listen, like, what happened?
On that? That wasn't real. It's part of the show. It's part of the show.
I didn't know we were going to go down this road until I brought it up. I didn't think I was going to bring it up today, but like, as a father of 4 who has a couple younger kids in the house, my teenagers, obviously that's a whole different conversation there a little bit, but like with like Owen, especially, Owen, he crashes the show all the time. He likes wrestling. Wrestling is in this household. It's very prevalent. Obviously, this is what I do for my hobby, and so he'll watch with me, but we have to have a very tough conversation of like, hey bud, this is at home. We don't take this to school. We don't do this to our friends. We don't wrestle with anybody that, we don't just go up and wrestle, Claymore kick a person unless it's me. He'll do that to me, but that's okay. I said at home, this is your zone. So just have that conversation. But obviously I'm not being like, hey, let's go watch, hey, Owen, let's go check out Swerve and Hangman in this lights out steel cage match where they're trying to murder each other. I go, that's probably not your speed, bud. So why don't we stick to the Miz versus Bobby Lashley?
Yeah.
That
I don't think that's what you want to do. and it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, dude, what do we, I don't know. Like, again, like I openly said, again, I didn't mind it. I watched it and I was like, that's pretty gnarly. They're trying to kill him.
But it was a good, but if it's,
but like, again, I didn't go, oh my God. Oh,
there was petition.
This company shouldn't exist anymore. Shut up. Stephanie McMahon was crucified on Raw.
I remember that.
I
watched. Remember,
was hung from a Hell in a Cell.
They did a father-daughter I Quit match.
What are we talking about? Triple H drugged Stephanie McMahon and married her on the Strip of Las Vegas.
On TV.
What are we talking about?
And then on top of it, I have the card somewhere in my collection. They made a top spin card commemorating the moment.
Brother, do I have to mention Katie Vick to anybody? What are we talking about?
So yeah, just change the channel.
Come on, guys, relax. Anyway,
but the show was good overall.
Oh, I thought it was one of the better pay-per-views they've had in a while. I think it was the best all-out they've had since I think probably 2021, 2022.
Interesting.
I thought it was excellent. I thought the only match that was I thought it was a good match, but I thought there was obviously things happening, with Mercedes. Her hair became an issue, and at one point I felt like, and it's not her fault, it's not anybody's fault, it's just a happenstance, but I felt like she cared more about making sure her hair was staying on.
You think she fired the person in charge of her wig after the match?
I don't think she would be that. I mean, I'm sure she wasn't thrilled about it, if I had to guess. Like, I felt like she spent a third, if not more, of the match just going like this, making sure it stayed on and wasn't really focused in. And
my whole thing was they had a really good match a few weeks ago, which awesome. I think they were trying to top it because they just had it, and I think some of the spots, like I said, it just didn't work out. But
I also think the fact that we just saw it hurt it, because I feel like if I didn't see a better version of that match a month earlier, I probably am not as hard on my review of the match. But I was expecting them, like you said, like, oh, dude, this thing was a banger a month ago. This is going to be even better.
And I know we harped
on that mentality, and then it's not, and you're like,
we harped on it with the tag division stuff. Why didn't they just heat Sheeta up like parallel to the Mercedes and then book this, knowing like, all right, we're going to book this match all out. We're not going to have them touch. Sheeta's on a tear right now.
I think the plan was probably for Mercedes to go back at it again.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that too.
You only have 2 weeks.
You don't have to book this match. You've got other women on that roster.
Correct.
Too.
I personally, even though we all love Sheeta, she's great, I wouldn't have had her win that 4-way. I would have had one of the other, I just feel like, Sheeta is a former multi-time women's champion. She does have that background and that history. She was the biggest star in that 4-way, but I kind of harp back to the same way that I feel about the tag teams. We've seen Sheeta go for these titles before. Not saying I don't ever want her to win a title again, because obviously I do, but you had Queen Aminata in that match. You had Thunder Rosa in that match.
Thunder Mercedes
and Thunder Rosa wouldn't have humped
at All Out.
We just saw the Sheeta Mercedes match a month earlier, and it humped. It was great. Like, you didn't have to go back to that well if you didn't. And, and AEW does that. They go back to what they know is going to be safe. I think that's part of the reason why they picked Ospreay to win the gauntlet last night, is because they know what they're going to get out of Will Ospreay. Yeah. And that's part of it. They go safe sometimes.
And we're going to veer a little bit off course here, but there's rumors of a 4th show coming to Fox.
There is.
You're going to have to start making some unsafe decisions.
Yeah.
Because you can't just put the same show on 4 times a week. And Ospreay's winning everything all the time. And I love Will Ospreay. He's fantastic. He's amazing. But I need some new, and this women's division, you can't just keep going back to the well. You got to start heating some of these women up, and you have all this hours of programming to do it. Like, why couldn't Sheeta just be running roughshod on Collision and Rampage, being actively calling out Mercedes, and Mercedes be like, nah, and then it comes to a head while Mercedes is still, I don't know. It was like, man, I really want more out of that because they're two fantastic competitors. But Tony, man, you got to give that pen to somebody else. Not completely stay out of booking decisions, but like you got to trust some other people and say, hey, like some of this stuff is like you're doing the same thing
it's
over
the same
and over.
Shit, man. It's the same shit a lot of
tough.
the time. And again, this is not. It's not. Look at.
We love AEW.
Yes, we are critiquing it, but I don't want this to like.
We critiqued WWE for years.
I'm not coming at it. I'm not coming at it from like a complaining standpoint. The shows still are great.
Yeah, the matches are good.
A lot. I enjoyed Dynamite last night a lot. Guess what? Even though I didn't agree with the final decision, that tag team gauntlet match was still pretty cool. It was still pretty fun, and it was an all right match. You know,
no, just the wrong team won.
Agreed. Yes. And I can critique that. I'm not complaining because the shows are still very enjoyable. And I love talking to them with you every Thursday night and with Drew. I love doing what we do. But like, you can't always just be like, okay, well, let's go back to the well again and we'll pick this guy because we know, like, at some point, you got to take a chance on a team like the Outrunners and just roll with it. At some point, you got to take a chance on we saw Queen Aminata last night have a great match with Mariah May. Why couldn't Queen Aminata have won that 4-way and had a banger with Mercedes? We knew Mercedes was winning, no matter who she faced. Yeah. Doesn't matter. Have somebody new look great at a new level in your company, and that is how you build new stars. You don't build new stars by and again, this is not anti-Will Ospreay, but you don't build new stars by having Will Ospreay win every fucking thing you do.
I hate to use this as an example of like, losing can, but remember Ellsworth, enhanced. No, I know, but like he at least got a year out of just that one spot where we all know he wasn't winning. Yeah. It was an enhancement, man. Terrible example. But the point is, like,
there have been plenty of people who have won by losing.
Won by losing, have got a run, have gotten over with the crowd because of something they did. Like, that was the first thing that caught in my mind. But he got a lot of legs out of that shit. Now, was it good or not? That's a debate.
Dude, look
whether
at
he's a good person or not. That's the debate.
Look at Daniel Bryan when he was in WWE. The whole reason the Yes Movement started was because he was losing matches. Because they didn't want him in the main event of WrestleMania 30, and the crowd was like,
he went 1 for 50, and he's the tribal chief.
Yeah. The crowd was like, F you, dude. Not doing it.
By the way,
there have been plenty of situations in all companies at all different levels, all different divisions. Dude, I mentioned the Acclaimed earlier. The Acclaimed were getting over, and they were building up momentum. They got close to winning the tag match, and they didn't win that first tag match, and they got more over because they didn't win that tag match, because it didn't just become, hey, we kind of like these guys. It became, holy shit, I want to see these guys actually win those titles.
Why didn't they win? Yeah.
Why didn't they win that match? Why didn't you pull the trigger? Did you hear the crowd? Make the change. You didn't. Now we're all pissed off, and what'd you do? 3 weeks later, you actually did it. You should have just fucking did it when it was there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it didn't hurt the Acclaim because they became the most over tag team for a year and a half until we all started to hate them now, apparently. But, you know, it is what it is.
Well, that's because Caster's raps have become...
He didn't even do one. He didn't even do one.
Even Bowens and Daddy Ass are like, did you just say that shit? Like, are you running that bias? Did you see, by the way, Triple H announced Solo Sikoa versus Cody Rhodes Universal Championship in a cage to kick off SmackDown on USA tomorrow?
Yeah, they announced it last week.
He announced it today.
They announced that the championship match was happening last Friday on SmackDown.
But they announced it's in a cage now.
Oh, well. Are they just copying AEW?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Swerve and Hangman in a cage with WWE.
It's going to kick off the show.
Is it commercial free?
I think so, probably. I would imagine. That just means that second half of SmackDown is going to just be...
Suck.
It's just going to be like every 30 seconds a commercial.
Yeah, it's going to be 82 minutes of commercials.
Yeah, no.
But back on, so we didn't even finish talking about the fucking Moxley shit. So that happens.
He murdered a guy.
I thought Wheeler Yuta was the whole glue of this segment because obviously the turn happens and everyone's like, oh shit, this is happening. But Wheeler Yuta not knowing and showing the emotion, and Pac as well. Like, they didn't take Wheeler Yuta out. They didn't attack him. They didn't knock him out.
Made him watch.
Yeah, but it was out of a way of like, it was almost kind of like, hey man, we know you're like, I could imagine
like this is happening.
Yeah, like I could imagine Pac. Obviously, we can't see his face, but I can imagine Pac being like, hey man, it's okay. It's okay. Like, it's just going, we had to do it. You'll understand. Like, it's okay. It's okay. Like that type of thing. Like, it wasn't like they could have easily just knocked Yuta out and did it anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But have like that emotion. I thought he was the whole glue of that whole thing. Cause then it was like, oh shit, this was calculated because he doesn't know. So that means that the other, damn, like it was like they were talking about this.
Like,
they
I
kept
know,
him out
who's
of it.
calling these shots? Yeah, you know who's.
Well, Mox is kind of.
Well, no, right. Like Mox is the face, but it's like is Mox on this level? Like he's masterminding all this stuff,
No,
or is he, exactly? So he's seeing a light, he's seeing a vision. So on the surface right now, all we have is that Mox is making these moves, but
so
I want to know who it is.
Yeah,
who
you fast forward to last night. They start the show by showing that promo that was filmed right after what they did on Saturday. And Moxley references William Regal, not by name, but he says, you know, the guy who created this group, like we were supposed to do this. I had to do what we had to do. What we had to do. You don't have the stomach for this anymore, Brian. That's what he says. You don't have the stomach for it anymore. We set out a couple years ago.
The crazy shit they're gonna do because they were doing some crazy shit with Regal.
Yeah, and so they have that moment, and then there's the moment later on where they get in the ring and Pac takes the mic, and Pac says that, you know, hey, we've been lost for I was lost for a really, really long time, but now I'm found. I feel like I have a purpose. I feel like I'm where I belong. And then he ends it. He goes, he's like, he said, I forget the first line, but he goes, this is our company now, or like, this is our company. And he drops the mic. But one thing they both said in the Mox promo from the top of the show and in Pac's promo, they both uttered the lines, diplomacy is dead. And they both mentioned the word diplomacy. And I was like, all right, is that going to be like their word in this fact? Like, are they going to be called the diplomacy? Like, they both, you know, that's not a word you friggin' hear all the time in wrestling promos, diplomacy. And they both said like, hey, diplomacy's dead around here. And we, you know,
yeah.
And then you even later on, Darby Allin shows up. He says, hey, I heard somebody's been looking for me. And then him and Moxley have their little crossover. And Darby tells the story of how he used to look up to Mox. And then he saw what Mox did to Brian on Saturday. And he could never imagine doing something like that to someone he loved and was family, like Sting. And he said, and in that moment, I realized I didn't want to be like you anymore. And then Moxley also told Darby, yeah, you're not ready. You're not ready for that world title match against Danielson at Grand Slam. You're not ready for it. So you should give it to me. And Darby's like, what? You've been drinking, bro? That was a good line. That was a good line by Darby. And the crowd was like, ooh. And Marina Shafir wanted to kill him, but Moxley was like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. And it ends up now, and I do want to bring this in too, because we do have to talk about another thing that was announced for Grand Slam. So now they take Darby Allin for the last month. We've been told he's fighting for the title at Grand Slam. Whatever happens on Saturday, Moxley in that promo to Darby says that match ain't happening anymore because the champion is indisposed. That's what he says.
Yeah.
Remember that. They do their back and forth, and now it ends up that it's going to be Moxley and Darby at Grand Slam #1 contendership. Oh, the number one, the shot on the line. Then later on, Nigel McGuinness, who we saw earlier talking to Christopher Daniels saying he needed to talk to Tony. Tony needs to hear this. We see Nigel McGuinness in the ring, and he says, well, this world championship match isn't happening now, but I have something even better because now the champion is not fighting at Grand Slam. So now it's going to be Nigel McGuinness versus Bryan Danielson at Grand Slam. Now, objectively, incredible that this match is happening. Like, so stoked. I'm glad we're getting it before Bryan is done and Nigel was able to kind of get over what he needed to from a health and safety standpoint to be able to wrestle again. Incredible that we're actually getting this match. But how the hell does the title match get canceled? Because Bryan Danielson is indisposed, but then you book Bryan Danielson in another match on the show that he was indisposed to not be in a title. How?
Gotta let it play out, brother.
How does that? How do we?
I wouldn't be surprised if next week we get some kind of Mox Nigel McGuinness interaction, being like, yeah, it's easy to like challenge a guy that's not going to be there, and maybe Mox keeps playing up that he's actually not going to be there. But yeah, that was super weird. That was another super weird decision that they made, where it's like, I like where you're going with the Mox Shafir stuff and all this, and I like the idea that you've got going here. I'm invested in it. But then you don't tie up that loose end and make me question, like, okay, so he's out. One, why would Darby just give up his title shot pretty easily, mind you? Like, he was like, yeah, I'll fight you. I'll do it. Like, make him work, make Mox work a little bit more for it, because it is yours. You did earn it, like you said, and he didn't, but you're like, yeah, sure, we'll just fight for it. And then you, like you said, you book a match after your main guy just said, hey, this dude's not even going to be there for the match, Darby. And then Nigel says he's challenging. We haven't officially saw Danielson say he accepts the challenge, but the graphic was made and they announced it. So it was a weird show last night. It was a weird show.
Yeah, it was a little weird. Just the way that they would say, like, maybe Moxley shouldn't have said indisposed. Like, I feel like Moxley could have just been like, hey,
but if I'm in the bathroom, I'm indisposed at the moment. So maybe he was just taking a poop.
No, it's just,
people don't poop.
Everybody poops.
Danielson doesn't poop. He's the GOAT. He doesn't go to the bathroom.
It just didn't make sense. Like, why would you say if Moxley would have left out that line of him being indisposed and just said, hey, I don't think you're ready for this moment, dude. I don't think you're ready for this moment. You should give me that. Like, they could have still got to where they got.
Cage still has a shot.
Well,
everybody
maybe we should save this for next week when we can have another broader, longer conversation. But I actually think, and I tweeted it when this went down, I think Darby is the guy. That's the vibe that I'm getting here. Is crazy. Like, well, you know, it would obviously make sense for Moxley to be. I get it. I would, especially with the angle they did. But I feel like, with what they did and the movement that they made and changing things around, I feel like that somehow, whether it is because of a Wheeler Yuta involvement or even a Danielson involvement or both, I don't know, or Chris, I don't know, but I feel like Darby's going to find a way to beat Moxley at Grand Slam, and I think Darby is going to beat Danielson at Wrestle Dream. They're both Washington guys, putting a new guy over, and then I would personally have Christian come out and just do it to Darby right there.
That's what I said. You gotta give him the moment.
Yeah, but I feel like,
but I don't think he's walking out of Wrestle Dream as your champion.
Yeah, I feel like, again, it makes perfect sense for Moxley to be that guy that fights Danielson in his last match. I get that, especially after the angle they show. I don't know. I'm just getting a feeling that it could be Darby. Because there was that report a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month ago at this point, where it said that AEW officials were heavily discussing Darby being a world champion like sooner than later.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they're doing this. You could have easily had the match at Grand Slam where Danielson can beat him and then fight somebody else at Wrestle Dream, and that's it. You switch this around. I assume the winner of that match will fight him at Wrestle Dream. It makes sense for either guy. I don't know.
He's indisposed. He's not available.
I'm getting vibes that I think Darby could be the one, dude. I think Darby could be the one.
I have mixed feelings on Darby. This Darby as a world champion is just not for me. I think he has a place. I think he would have a good match with Daniels. I think Danielson would want that match, but yeah, the way this storyline is going, there's a lot of things not working in Darby's favor. But again, this is because none of it's making any sense.
Yeah.
I need them to figure out how to make sense next week of some of this stuff. Where I'm all about cliffhangers and things, and I like how they've started to seed like the stuff throughout the show where there's a clear theme of the night. Like, all right, it's Big Mox and Shafir thing tonight. Hangman Swerve, throughout the night a couple weeks back. Like, yeah, I'm liking all that. But when you say things and then you immediately contradict them 2 segments later, I'm like, that's not great storytelling. That's just confusing.
What did you say?
What?
You said you immediately what?
When you immediately contradict yourself?
Okay. It sounded like you said counter dick.
Oh,
And
when you immediately count dicks, so
yeah, I'm like, counter dick. I'm like, is that a new way to say that? Is that what you did say? Counter dick it. What? That's what it sounded like. I'm sorry.
Listen, Tony Khan, you're out here counting dicks on AEW.
I heard you say it, and I was like, and I was still listening to you keep talking. But I was like, did he say the whole time? I'm like, did he say counter dick?
Well, to be fair, I do ask you what you say quite a bit with your boss accent,
you know?
So it's fair that I get
one every so often.
I think that's a great way to say, hey, this was a really fun episode.
It was good. One thing though, I do want to ask you before we leave here in a few minutes.
Sure.
And we really didn't talk any WWE tonight. I'm sure we'll get back on track, next week or whatever.
They had a good week, but I think
I thought that fatal
bad blood coming up is going to be.
I thought that fatal 4-way fucking ruled.
Yeah.
On Monday, and Bronson Reed. Oh God, I love that guy. Anyway, but big announcement on Raw though, starting on October 7th. Raw going back to 2 hours. Pluggo.
Yeah, thank God.
Going back to 2 hours, and I assume they'll stay that way.
The rumor on the street is
2 hours, baby.
2 hours for the rest of the year, and then commercial-free 2 hours heading into the Netflix era is what I've been seeing floated around, which 2 hours commercial-free, obviously they'll put fillers like they do when you go to a live show and things of that nature, and they'll have segments to, for the wrestling. But yeah, I'm excited to be able to show up at 8 and be done by 10. Because I can tell you some of those Monday nights, as much as I have been pushing through because they've been so good, it's 11 o'clock is still 11 o'clock. And here's Asian Show. What am I listening? I forgot all
I was waiting. I didn't. I was waiting for a place to have a joke on it.
I
kind of mentioned. I think Joe's think alike. I think the great name.
Did you see R-Truth?
Oh, he was in it the whole time.
He's gonna go,
turn off your phone, Unc.
What you doing?
Yeah, what you do? Unc, turn off the phone, Unc. Unc, turn off the live.
That don't sound PG.
They fired him, dude.
Who?
ESPN fired him today.
Oh, is Shannon Sharp on ESPN?
Well, somebody fired him. He got fired.
He was doing his own thing, I thought. Club Shay Shay.
Well, he's doing the thing with Ocho Cinco, but wasn't he still on? Somebody fired. At least I saw on social media, people were saying he got fired. I don't know.
Maybe
who the fuck believes anything on social media. But honestly,
maybe he got sponsorship deals pulled. Who knows? But yeah, I mean,
hey,
who hasn't had their IG live just
here's my thing.
Turn
was
on
he committing a crime? Was he doing anything really? I mean, listen, he was an idiot. He's an old man that didn't know how to use a phone. He's in his 50s. So it's not like he's young. Well, he's not old, but you know what I mean. But like, he's an older guy. I'm not even 40, and technology's too much for me. He's 20 years older than me, and he messed up. But if anything, I think we all should be admiring and maybe a little jealous.
He still got it.
Sounded like he was having a good time.
You still got it.
It sounded like everybody involved was having a good time. Was having a good time.
Committed.
Yeah. But on that note, we are going to get out of here.
If anything, it's just research for,
See, I thought he was still on ESPN, but I thought I heard some people saying today that they were like, they got rid of him. Which I'm saying, like, I get it. It's embarrassing. Look, it's embarrassing, if anything, but compared to some other shit we see celebrity, like what gets caught doing that? Like, come on. I understand it's embarrassing. It's the big funny talking point of, that's fine. But like the people that are like, oh my, gives a shit.
Off with his head, fire him.
I mean, you can in Indiana where Pluggo's from, but you can go to a lot of websites and see a lot worse for free. So, it is what it is. You got to put in your friggin' social security number and they try to get you in Indiana.
You have to scan in. You have to scan in if you want to do your research.
Oh, Joe, getting dirty. All right. On that note, we are going to get out of here.
Is he indisposed like Danielson was indisposed?
One thing I do want to say on Dynamite last night, Christian had the line where he said, I'm going to beat you so bad, Brian, that you're going to wish your wife had CTE instead of you. So she won't be able to remember. Yeah. So she won't be able to remember how much of an embarrassment you are. Oh, tremendous. God. Anyway, on that note, Pluggo, you know the drill.
Yeah, I'm yawning. Wow, out of nowhere.
Wow, geez, Louise, Pluggo's got to go to bed, guys.
I'm getting old.
So, B2 Beards on all social media platforms.
You're gonna do it?
Well, no, I was just gonna,
Yeah, because we're at B2 Beards on all social media platforms. You stay there up to date with what we've got going on. We're dropping some new stuff here. We got a social media exclusive dropping.
We told you guys. Yeah. We told you guys a couple weeks ago we were gonna be doing
like
some
hell.
More stuff.
Kevin, shout out to him for coming on. PWI's Kevin McElvaney. That was a last minute thing. You wouldn't have known that unless you were on the social medias like a half hour before the show. So You never know what's going on here. You find me at Pluggo on all social media platforms. You search his face. I'm sitting right there. That's where you can find me Saturday morning, 10 a.m. with Blair Pacheco, Grainmaker Podcast for exposure. And if you still want to talk, if you still want more all out and all dynamite conversation, head over to the Mark Order Podcast right now on YouTube and check us out. We were hanging out last night with the one, the only Asian Joe and Ryan Sullivan.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. Pluggo said everything about beards every Thursday night, 8 p.m. It's always us two. Although sometimes I like to take vacations, but it's us two. 171 of these bad boys. The flagship here at Love Wrestling. Tuesdays and Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. with my buddy Drew Nicholas doing Firmly Love Wrestling. We talk WWE on Tuesdays. We talk AEW on Thursdays. So you can go check us out there. Like Pluggo said, be on the alert of our socials, the B2 Beards in our individual socials. We are going to have a lot more social media exclusive content coming out here on the Beards side of things. Follow everyone here at Love Wrestling. You know the drill. The last Friday of the month, LPW, the best independent wrestling you will find. We got LPW 30 coming up at the end of this month. A big one. What is it? Is it Flirty and 30 or 30 and Flirty?
It's LPW 30, Flirty, and Thriving.
There we go. 30, Flirty, and Thriving. I tried to get it. I tried to be smart. I tried to get it. But LPW 30, a huge milestone event for us. 30 of these things. Who would have thought? But yeah, give us all a follow here at Love Wrestling. We do a lot of cool shit with a lot of cool people. So for Pluggo, for myself, a special thank you again to Kevin McElvaney for joining us from PWI, talking the list, PWI 500. For Pluggo, for myself, you know the drill, everybody.
Make sure that IG story's off.
Brother, say hi to Sue. Sue would not have been happy.
Yeah, Sue would not have let that go down.
No, that would have not went well. That would have not went well. Peace out.
Hey there, Plugo and JPJ. It's Trent's mom, Sue, and I have a bone to pick with you. So, I understand that you guys are being real idiots and spending your entire monthly budget. You've got to be kidding me. This is not the way to be when you're trying to run a business. Your boss, Spencer, is really pissed off at you. I'm pissed off at you. You have some nerve. Get a grip. You have to control yourself. You can't just go out and spend all the money that you're making, you two beards guys. Oh no, this is coming out so stupid. Anyway, behave yourselves or I'm going to cut you off from watching AEW. You're no longer going to get to know, be able to meet my son. What? Or me. I'm sorry, this is like, I don't know. Anyway, thanks so much for being fans.